Good day, everyone! It's Londononion here with our first boss guide, and today I'll be giving my guide on the world boss of Yaesha, the Corruptor. First, we'll go through a brief threat assessment, transition to tactics for success, cover some quick do's and don'ts, and end off with an uninterrupted and admittedly imperfect demonstration of my success against this boss. Before we begin, it is important to note that I'll be speaking on this boss from the perspective of playing on the Apocalypse difficulty. If it can work on this difficulty, it can work on lower ones. Without further delay, we'll start with our threat assessment. So if I'm being honest, this was the first world boss I had encountered, and it definitely kicked my ass inside out. A major part of the difficulty is the layout of the arena. The battlegrounds are split into 3 relatively narrow and long platforms. One can jump from one platform to the next, but only one way. Falling in between will end in one's demise. The main enemy in this battle is the Corruptor. The main threat, however, is the 4-armed, sword-wielding Guardian. There are a series of attacks from the Guardian, and in essence, one from the Corruptor. The Guardian's main attack is swinging all 4 arms in an opposing, rotating fashion while marching towards you. Secondarily, the Guardian will dislodge its arms, one at a time, that will home in on a given target and swing at them, or stab at the ground and create a shockwave. Later in the battle, dislodged arms become blue and maintain a distance while hurling electrical spheres at a given target, but they also may stab the ground and create the same shockwave. If close to the Guardian, it will issue a single horizontal swipe with one of the attached arms, inflicting high damage. Lastly, if on differing platforms or following the Guardian's recovery sequence, they will jump towards you and create a shockwave upon landing. Their jumping patterns, however, are not static and may occur outside of the aforementioned conditions. Now, each of the attacks from the Guardian are devastating, though to varying degrees. The most threatening is when the Corruptor jumps toward their challenger. If one's armor is not high enough, the damage is fatal. Additionally, the blue dislodged arms inflict overloaded, which can easily kill over time. The Corruptor themselves has only one attack, but it is the most devastating and under most circumstances will kill quickly, regardless of armor. With enough health depleted from the Corruptor, they will position themselves to the path their challenger is standing on, charge up an attack over the course of about 5 seconds, and release a large red beam that essentially creates area denial for an entire platform. Throughout the battle, one will notice flyers that surround the Corruptor. If the Guardian is incapacitated, a series of flyers will attack you while the Corruptor revives the Guardian. Outside of the revival process, they may attack at random, with no pattern that this onion could notice, but the frequency seems to increase as the Corruptor's health depletes. The Corruptor will also increase their frequency of their area denial attack and speed up their positioning from one platform to another. Transitioning to the meat of our discussion, tactics for success. At the absolute least, this onion would recommend equipping at least one weapon that is more suited for high burst damage, and one with a moderately high magazine, or at the very least with high reload efficiency. When the battle commences, the Corruptor will start off with approximately 2/3 of their health. Upon the Guardian dislodging an arm, taking down that arm should be priority 1 as far as target elimination goes. The arms can take a fair amount of punishment, so an easy to use and high burst damage weapon would be ideal in this onion's opinion. The weak spot of the Guardian is their head, but it is only accessible while they are marching towards you while spinning their arms, briefly while jumping between platforms, or when recovering their arms. After the first 2 arms have been incapacitated, the Guardian will soon become stationary and reveal their weak spot until all of their arms have been reattached. During this time, one's burst damage weapon would be ideal for incapacitating the Guardian efficiently. Once the Guardian is down, the Corruptor will give out a high-pitched scream for a brief moment. This can be an opportunity to inflict weak spot damage. Following their scream, the Corruptor will levitate over the Guardian and revive them. During this process, a series of flyers will attack you. The hostile flyers will have a bit of an orange glow and will be flying in a straight path. And this is where a higher magazine or quickly reloaded weapon will come in useful. Also, the Corruptor's alternative weak spot will be exposed as they revive the Guardian. It is important to note, the Corruptor will sacrifice their own health to revive the Guardian, so even if one does not inflict damage, it is not an entirely wasted opportunity if overwhelmed by flyers. Following the first revival, the Corruptor will likely have lost enough health and immediately begin their area denial attack on whatever platform you are on. This is where space management begins to get increasingly important, lest one suffer fatal damage. Following the Corruptor's attack, one will have anywhere from 15 to 20 seconds before the Corruptor begins to charge again. When the Corruptor's health is low enough, their frequency will be closer to approximately 15 seconds. Now, there is no fixed choreographed plan for perfectly avoiding the Corruptor's beam while managing the Guardian, but instead a plan of action. After escaping a beamed platform, this onion would recommend waiting for the Guardian to jump before progressing to the next platform exit. It's imperative that one times their exits to avoid being too far from their next exit whilst the Corruptor is charging. If one is forced to change platforms prior to the Corruptor initiating a charged attack, running to the next exit will likely be necessary, as being too slow may leave one stranded and vulnerable to the Corruptor's onslaught. As one continues to incapacitate the Guardian, the amount of health depleted from the Corruptor will diminish each time, and this will warrant additional damage from you for a more efficient end to the Corruptor. Meanwhile, the Guardian will dislodge their arms at a higher frequency, with a greater ratio of blue to regular arms. For our last discussion, I'll briefly touch on a few do's and don'ts. Our first one might be basic, but do travel with some extra ammo cases. The Corruptor and Guardian together can be quite an ammo sink, especially when factoring in range and fall-off damage. Do use your space wisely. Sometimes it helps to bait the Guardian into jumping toward a preferable spot for additional real estate on a given platform. This last one is more of a double-edged sword, but do bring an ally of some sort, whether it be the handler dog, or more ideally, the minions of the summoner. The Guardian's arms will likely target them over you and allow some space. However, the Corruptor can also target them and throw off your cadence with timing transitions between platforms. As for the don'ts, don't try to dodge the Guardian's spinning attack by means of sprinting. Technically, one can eke their way around on a single platform with proper space management, though I would consider it more of an emergency maneuver. Don't ignore the flyers when the Corruptor is reviving the Guardian. Their moderate damage adds up quickly. Eliminate them, or at the very least sprint away from them before focusing on the Corruptor. Don't ignore the dislodged arms, especially later in the battle. They will likely throw off your timing and end in your demise. Don't flinch and flee if you incapacitate the Guardian while the Corruptor is charging. It will cease the charging sequence and transition to revival. Lastly, and this one is very important, don't give up if caught in the Corruptor's blast. If your armor is high enough, you can dodge the initial hit and potentially tank the next 3, though you will likely need a relic. And one last do that I almost forgot. If the Guardian decides to end themselves by jumping off the stage, do take the victory and put it in your back pocket. With all of that said, we will transition to the demonstration. Alright, that otherwise concludes the first part of our Corruptor guide. Stay tuned for the next video of this series where I will be covering a guide for the alternate kill of the Corruptor. It has been Londononion, and I will see you guys next time.